Please be advised, this podcast contains graphic audio and themes that may not be appropriate for all listeners. You may remember that there is just one video of Champlain Towers South crashing to the ground in the middle of the night. It was captured by a security camera at 87 Park. The camera is mounted at the southeast corner of the pool deck, looking toward the northwest. It's a clear, windy night in the hauntingly silent image. You can see 87 Park's two beautiful pools, lots of deck chairs and umbrellas. And above some treetops, Champlain Towers South rises in the distance, and then out of nowhere, falls in a cloud of dust. In the aftermath of the tragedy, survivors and relatives of the dead filed a class action lawsuit against more than a dozen defendants, including several associated with 87 Park, saying the construction played a major role in the disaster. As we've heard in previous episodes, some of those defendants have settled for millions of dollars, but not the developer or general contractor of 87 Park. They've argued from the very beginning that their work had nothing to do with the disaster. Before work on 87 Park even began, the people in Champlain Towers South didn't like their new neighbor one bit. But there was basically nothing they could do about it. Between the two buildings is the beach access path that we heard Surfside police officers run along immediately after the collapse, trying to figure out what had happened, hearing cries for help in the dark. The border between the city of Miami Beach on the south and the town of Surfside to the north runs right through there too. And Nick Nehemas says the tension along that divide as 87 Park took shape tells a story about the evolution of Miami, one with some eerie parallels to the story of Champlain Towers itself.
So 87 Park really represents the changing of the old kind of Miami Beach and Surfside into what, visitors now see when they visit Miami. These gleaming glass and steel towers designed by starchitects, multi-million-dollar units.
Nehemas has covered everything from the Panama Papers to the illegal gold that flows into Florida from South America. He's also investigated the foreign money flowing into Miami real estate and how it has helped transform the city.
What 87 Park replaced was this aging, kind of decrepit hotel known as the Deezerland that, catered to the middle-class tourists, some of them French-Canadian, who so famously populated Surfside. And it was kind of falling apart. And so this very prominent Miami development group, led by Pedro and David Martin, father and son, Cuban immigrants, the father decided to buy the hotel. Their first plan was to renovate the hotel and build a condo tower off to the side. Ultimately, they decided to tear down the entire hotel and just build this gleaming condo tower designed by Renzo Piano, who's one of the most famous architects in the world. And the neighborhood in North Beach is very low-rise, working class. It's not South Beach, it's North Beach. North Beach is much quieter, more residential. There are no nightclubs up here. A lot of my colleagues actually live in North Beach because it's affordable. And just a few blocks to our north is the town of Surfside. I live on 81st Street. And so David Martin's tower was kind of a brand new style of development for this neighborhood. And so it was very controversial.
Champlain Towers South was about 32 years old in 2013 when David Martin made a deal to buy the lot next door, right over the town line. At that time, the line was a street called 87th Terrace. And what happened to 87th Terrace is a window into how development has worked for decades in South Florida.
Yeah, so this property where the Deezerland was, where 87 Park is now, is right to the north of one of the largest parks in Miami Beach, North Shore Open Space Park. And so the developers pitched their brand new tower as kind of being on Miami Beach's version of Central Park. And so they were not looking to attract local buyers. They wanted out-of-town money, foreign money, people used to the very best in luxury, the very best in amenities. And so to do that, they needed to make their property as big as they possibly could so they could build the biggest tower possible. And so among their maneuvers, one was getting the commission, Miami Beach Commission, to pass an ordinance that allowed them to build higher.
Now, that sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it? Sort of like the way things played out 40 years ago when Champlain Towers was going up, and the town of Surfside granted those developers a waiver to add a penthouse. That was after the developer, as you'll recall, had kicked in $200,000 to fix Surfside's decrepit sewer system. The more things change, the more they stay the same. This time, though, the building wasn't just getting taller. Much more important for Champlain Towers South, it was getting wider, too. And that's after the developers made a $10.5 million donation to Miami Beach.
They paid the city $10.5 million voluntarily, and in exchange received the rights to 87th Terrace, which was a public street that separated the Deezerland in Miami Beach from Champlain Towers South and Surfside. It was the municipal border, as well as the border between these two properties. So by taking over this public street, the developers of 87 Park were able to build right up against the line with Champlain Towers South. So the distance between the two properties went from 60 to 70 feet to 10. And really, the properties were touching at that point.
As close as this new building was going to be, as much as it might directly impact their quality of life, politically, it might as well have been on another planet as far as Champlain Towers was concerned.
So the residents of Champlain Towers South were aware of this political back and forth that was happening in Miami Beach right from the beginning. They knew this property was on their doorstep. What they found was that they had no power or agency to influence anything that happened in Miami Beach. The residents of Champlain Towers South were not the constituents of the politicians in Miami Beach who were making decisions that ultimately may have impacted or affected Champlain Towers South to a very great extent. So Surfside, including the town manager, were kind of looking just to the south, watching and not very happy, but really unable to influence what was happening.